One moment, my sister was laughing as she snatched my favorite chair, her smug grin lighting up the room. The next, her voice dropped into something unnatural. A guttural, impossible tone that made my blood freeze. "You'll regret this," it hissed, but her lips weren't moving. And that's when I noticed the shadow behind her, twisting. The fluorescent glow of my laptop screen was the only light in the dim home office as I hunched over overdue reports, the familiar comfort of my high-backed leather chair supporting me through another late night. I didn't hear her enter. The first warning was the sudden jerk as the chair rolled backward, my hands flailing to catch the edge of the desk. "You've been hugging this all week," my sister Priya's voice sang out as she wheeled the chair toward the door, her reflection in the dark window showing that infuriating smirk she'd perfected since childhood. He stood up so fast my knee knocked the desk drawer shut. "Give it back, I'm working." The words came out sharper than I intended, fueled by 3 sleepless nights and the looming project deadline. Priya paused in the doorway, the chair swiveling slightly as she turned. That's when I noticed how her fingers dug into the armrests like claws, her knuckles standing out white against her dark skin. "Finders keepers," she said, but the playful lilt of her voice dropped halfway through, the last word coming out garbled and thick, like two people speaking at once. The hallway light flickered, just a brownout, surely, but in that split second of darkness, I could have sworn I saw her mouth keep moving after the sound stopped. Then she was gone, the chair's wheels squeaking down the hallway in a rhythm that almost sounded like laughter. I stood frozen, the imprint of her strange voice clinging to my ears, until the automatic save notification on my laptop snapped me back to reality. Shaking my head, I grabbed a dining chair and dragged it to my desk, trying to ignore how the leather seat still held the unnatural warmth of her grip. The house had settled into that peculiar silence of early morning when I finally saved my work and pushed back from the desk, my spine cracking in protest from the unforgiving wooden chair. The numbers on my clock read 3:47 de la mañana as I crept toward the kitchen, avoiding the floorboard that always creaked outside Priya's room. The refrigerator hummed a laugh when I opened it, its light spilling across the tile floor where I saw them, faint, damp footprints leading from the hallway to the basement door, which stood slightly ajar despite the deadbolt I'd installed last month. A metallic tang hung in the air, like the scent after licking a battery, growing stronger as I approached the basement stairs. "Priya!" I called softly, gripping the banister as I descended into darkness, my bare foot meeting something cold and smooth on the third step. My office chair sat perfectly centered on the staircase, its back to me, the leather gleaming with what looked like condensation in the dim glow from my phone. When I touched it, the surface was dry and strangely warm, the heat radiating through the material like a living thing. That's when the chair moved, not rolling, but tilting backward toward me with impossible slowness, revealing Priya sitting rigidly upright, her face slack except for her lips which stretched into a smile too wide for her features. "You took too long," she said in a voice that wasn't hers, the words vibrating with a resonance that made my teeth ache, her unblinking eyes reflecting the phone light with a glassy, animal shine. He stumbled backward up the stairs as the chair began to rotate, Priya's head lolling to one side at an unnatural angle while that terrible smile never wavered, her fingers now fused to the armrests like melted wax. The basement door slammed shut above me with a sound like a gasp, plunging me into darkness just as the chair's wheels began to squeak upward toward where I stood paralyzed with terror. My shoulder hit the door with enough force to rattle the frame as I burst back into the hallway, the deadbolt miraculously giving way as I threw my weight against it. The sudden brightness of the hallway lights after the basement's darkness left spots dancing in my vision, but I could still make out the shape of my office chair sitting placidly at the top of the stairs, empty, dry, and perfectly normal. No Priya. No melted hands. Used the faintest smell of ozone lingering in the air. I pressed my ear to the basement door but heard only silence, broken moments later by the sound of Priya's bedroom door opening down the hall. "What are you screaming about at 4 in the morning?" she grumbled, rubbing her eyes with perfectly normal fingers, her hair mussed from sleep. The rational part of my brain noted she was wearing different pajamas than the jeans and tank top I'd seen in the basement, but the scream still building in my throat came out as a strangled whisper, "You were just, the chair." Priya frowned and stepped closer, her shadow stretching long across the wall behind her, except the shadow kept moving when she stopped, its head tilting curiously in my direction. "You've been working too hard," she said, reaching out to touch my forehead, but I flinched away, my back hitting the wall as her shadow's arm extended toward me, fingers elongating into tendrils that brushed against my cheek with a static charge. Priya didn't seem to notice, her real hand dropping back to her side as she yawned. "Take a Xanax or something," she muttered, turning back toward her room, her shadow peeling away from the wall to follow with a liquid smoothness that made my stomach lurch. I remained frozen until her door clicked shut, then fumbled for my phone, opening the camera app with shaking hands. The video I'd taken in the basement showed only an empty chair on the steps, but when I enhanced the audio, beneath my panicked breathing was a rhythmic creaking, the sound of the cha. Dawn painted the kitchen in pale gold as I sat clutching a mug of tea that had long gone cold, the events of the night replaying in my mind with surreal clarity. The rational explanations, sleep deprivation, stress hallucinations, crumbled when I checked my phone and found 17 minutes of missing time between when I'd started descending the basement stairs and when I'd burst back into the hallway. Priya shuffled in wearing her ratty college hoodie, looking perfectly ordinary as she grabbed the cereal box, her shadow behaving normally in the morning light. "You look like hell," she remarked through a mouthful of cornflakes, and for a moment I almost convinced myself it had all been a nightmare, until she reached across the table for the sugar bowl and I saw it. A faint but unmistakable handprint burned into the leather of her left palm, exactly where the chair's armrest would have been. She followed my gaze and quickly closed her fingers, but not before I noticed the skin around the mark was translucent, revealing dark veins pulsing beneath. "Paper cut," she said when I asked, licking the wound, with a tongue that seemed slightly too pointed before turning back to her breakfast. Our parents' voices drifted in from the living room, discussing weekend plans as if nothing were amiss, the normalcy of their conversation making the situation feel even more deranged. He waited until Priya left for her morning run, since when did she jog, before slipping into her room, the space unnaturally tidy compared to her usual chaos. The office chair sat in the corner, facing the wall, a fine layer of dust covering it as if it hadn't been touched in weeks. Jipped when I placed my hand on the backrest, the leather was warm to the touch, and something beneath the surface throbbed faintly against my palm like a slow heartbeat. A glint of metal caught my eye, wedged between the seat cushion and armrest was Mom's missing locket, the one she'd reported lost months ago, its chain fuse. The house was eerily quiet when I returned, the only sound the faint squeak of chair wheels from upstairs as I crept to the kitchen, where my untouched lunch plate sat covered in plastic wrap, except the sandwich had been replaced with a nest of shredded paper, each strip bearing fragments of my handwriting from old journals. A cold draft emanated from the basement door, which stood slightly ajar despite the deadbolt, tendrils of mist curling around its edges. When I pressed my ear to the wood, I heard wet, rhythmic clicking, like knuckles cracking in reverse, and Priya's voice whispering in perfect sync with the creaking of my office chair. "You should have taken the hint when it gave you those migraines," the dual voices cooed, followed by a sound like leather stretching. My phone buzzed with a notification. A shared album titled Memories had appeared in our family cloud, filled with photos of me sleeping, the timestamp showing they'd been taken last night. In each one, the office chair loomed just out of frame, its shadow stretching toward me in jagged, unnatural angles. The attic stairs groaned underfoot as I hunted for the box of Mom's old diaries, the air thick with the scent of mothballs and something sweetly rotten. Behind a stack of Christmas decorations, I found it, the box labeled Sentimental in Mom's looping script, its tape brittle with age. The diaries were gone. In their place sat my office chair, its leather now cracked and veined with pulsing black filaments, the armrest stained with something dark and sticky. A single Polaroid was wedged in the seat crevice, a young mom standing in front of the Luxor factory, her hand resting on a half-finished chair, her smile not reaching her eyes. The back read, "Prototype test successful. Subject dos irritant." A drop of warm liquid hit my neck. I looked up to see Priya crouched on the rafters, her limbs bent at impossible joints, her mouth stretched around a silent scream as thick, tarry tears dripped from her unblinking eyes. The chair beneath me vibrated, its wheels locking onto my ankles with a metallic click. The Paranormal Investigator's storefront was wedged between a pawn shop and a boarded-up diner, the neon open sign flickering like a distress signal. Dr. Verma barely glanced up from her spirit box when I mentioned the chair, but her fingers froze over the dials when I described the voice change. "Not haunted. Infected," she corrected, sliding a yellowed case file across the desk. The 1987 incident report detailed how Luxor's owner had experimented with emotional resonance sealing, trapping human grief in furniture to enhance productivity. A circled footnote listed side effects, vocal distortion, shadow anomalies, and eventual fusion with the object. My phone lit up with a call from home. When I declined it, the line stayed connected anyway, broadcasting a loop of Priya humming Mom's lullaby, interspersed with wet, tearing sounds. Dr. Barma's face paled. "Your sister's not possessed. She's converging. And the chair wants you next." The security camera feed on my laptop showed Priya pacing the living room in jerky stop motion, her movements out of sync with the timestamp. At 3:33 de la mañana, she dragged the office chair to the center of the room and knelt before it, her spine arching backward until her head touched the floor. The chair leaned down to meet her, its backrest splitting open like a jaw to envelop her face. The footage cut to static, but the audio continued, a wet, rhythmic schlick of something being absorbed. When I zoomed in on the paused image, the chair's shadow wasn't cast by the lamp, it extended from Priya's own silhouette, tendrils piercing her wrists and ankles like puppet strings. A notification popped up, Priya had tagged me in a post. The photo showed our childhood treehouse, its interior now filled with dozens of office chairs arranged in a spiral, each occupied by a blurred figure. The caption read, "Family meeting tonight, carita sonriendo." The trap was simple. I left my hoodie draped over the dining chair and hid in the pantry, watching through a crack in the door. At midnight, Priya slunk in, her movements fluid and insectal, her head tilting at unnatural angles as she sniffed the fabric. When she reached for it, I slammed the pantry door and wedged a chair under the knob, but the laughter that answered me came from inside the pantry. The odious sleeves twitched, then stood up on their own, the collar stretching into a crude mouth. "Sisterly love is such sticky stuff," it gurgled in Priya's voice before dissolving into a puddle of black sludge. Across the house, the office chair began to rock violently, its casters screeching against the hardwood as it spelled out words in Morse code, YOURTURN. Mom's diary pages were hidden behind the water heater, their edges nibbled by rats, but the crucial entry intact. Dr. Luxor promised the chairs would absorb our grief. But it took more. Malia from accounting vanished after crying into her prototype. Then the chairs started singing in her voice. A Polaroid fell from the pages, Mom pregnant with me, gripping the arms of an office chair as two nurses held her down, the caption "Transference procedure successful." My hands shook as I pieced it together, the migrancy they had since childhood, the way I always knew when Priya was jealous. The chair wasn't just feeding on us. It was replicating us. Downstairs, the sound of splintering wood erupted as the office chair burst through the basement door, its leather now split to reveal layers of teeth, rolling toward me on Priya's broken body like a grotesque chariot. Salt circles and sage did nothing. The chair absorbed the holy water I threw at it, the droplets forming screaming faces and the steam that rose from its surface. Dr. Barma's last text before her number disconnected flashed on my screen. "It doesn't want your fear. It wants your forgiveness." Priya's body convulsed in the chair's grip, her mouth unhinging to spew black tendrils that spelled words on the wall. "Hate you, hate you, hate you." But beneath the ink, faint and childlike, was another message: "Help me." He dropped to my knees and did the unthinkable. I apologized. For the art awards, the advanced classes, the car keys. For every time they dismissed her pain. The chair's teeth retracted with a wet bulb, Priya's body slumping forward as the shadow binding her flickered like a dying bulb. The entity lashed out as its hold weakened, the chair's legs elongating into barbed spikes that pierced my calves, trying to anchor itself. Priya's eyes flew open, her real eyes, and she grabbed my wrist with blistered hands. "The locket," she croaked. He wrenched it from the chair's crevice, the fused chain burning my palm. Inside was a photo of us as kids, our faces scratched out. The moment I pried it loose, the chair shrieked, its leather splitting to reveal muscle-like fibers that pulsed with stolen memories, Christmases, birthdays, all the moments Priya had felt overshadowed. The shadow creature unraveled, its form dissolving into smoke that smelled of burned hair and office supplies, its final whisper, finally seen, fading as Priya collapsed into my arms. Weeks later, Priya had no memory of the possession, though she'd developed a phobia of wheeled furniture. The office chair sat in the garage, inert and gathering dust, until the night I caught Priya sleepwalking toward it, her hands outstretched. He yanked her back just as the chair's shadow detached and slithered into the walls. The next morning, Mom called, her voice oddly bright. "Guess what? They're reopening the Luxor factory." In the background, I could hear the faint squeak of wheels. He donated the chair to Goodwill, watching as the cashier rolled it into the storeroom without a second glance. That night, my phone buzzed with a notification, a 5-star review from the thrift store. "Perfect condition. Customer said it radiates positive energy." The attached photo showed the chair in a sunny living room, a teenage girl grinning as she spun in circles. Zooming in, I saw it, the girl's shadow remained still while she moved, its head tilted at exactly the angle Priya's had that first night. As I screenshotted it, my desk chair, a cheap plastic one they bought as replacement, let out a soft creak, though no one was sitting in it. Downstairs, the grandfather clock struck midnight, its chimes syncopated with the sound of wheels rolling across hardwood. Sometimes, the real victory is not letting yourself lose, even if the other person wins with a lie. If you've ever felt something like this, please let me know in the comments. I read every comment. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like. Don't forget to share it with someone close to you, they might need to hear it too. And if you want to hear more such real stories, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next story.